Welcome to Heavy Muscle Radio on TV. I'm Dave Palumbo, and I'm here with Chris the Technician Aceto, as always, on this August 28th, 2017 afternoon. Chris, a lot went down in the bodybuilding world this past week, and it wasn't competitions, that's for sure. A lot of bad news on the horizon. Chris, I know you're out in down here in California, down here in Florida with the rest of us, surviving the remnants, I guess, of the hurricane that hit Texas. Are you out of water, or are you in water right now?
Just a lot of rain. You know, we're close. You know, we're closer to Texas than New York or Maine is to Texas, right? But you know, a lot of rain, a lot of cloudy days. But
I like it. I know you're here on vacation, but I love it. The crops are getting watered, Chris. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah. Well, in Maine, we've had no. We need rain up in Maine. That's for sure. We've had none.
Oh, yeah. I didn't know that you were having a drought this year.
It's been going on for a while.
I didn't know that. I didn't see. Now you learn something new every day. Now, obviously, let's start with the shocking news. I think the most shocking news of the week was Dallas McCarver at 26 years of age, passing. Still haven't heard anything as far as what was the official cause of death. We can speculate here on the show, Chris, but the bottom line is that it was really the shock heard around the bodybuilding world, because I don't think anyone ever would have expected someone of his age and supposed health. I mean, he looked very healthy to me. Anything like that happening to them. And we hear this about guys in their 40s, you know, dropping 50s, heart attack here and there, but not a guy of that age, not someone who is, you know, probably was one of the upcoming future stars of the sport. Just tragic. I mean, it really shocked the bodybuilding world. It rocked it in the sense that a lot of people are, you know, questioning what they're doing. Are we doing something wrong in the bodybuilding world? You know, of course, we're getting the input of mainstream press from ESPN to TMZ. Everyone's throwing in their 2 cents about, you know, steroids, of course, because the guy was so big. What was your reaction, I guess, to the way the industry responded to the death of Dallas McCarver?
Well, you know, how the bodybuilding industry responded, or
yeah, or anyone, how everyone, because I think different segments had different responses.
Well, my personal response was just of it's weird. I sadness, but more empathy for his mother or his father or his brother or sisters. You know, I don't know what type of siblings he had, but he's you know, he's 380 pounds or whatever. You know, 340, and he's to his mother. He's just as, you know, he's probably still the the 10-year-old little kid that she used to throw on her lap.
Yeah.
So. I think the natural response by people would be, like everyone, grief, sadness. I mean, people respond to deaths in different ways, right? Due to their relationships with that person. And I didn't know really Dallas, but I can't stop still. I'm surprised, actually, just thinking like his mother must be challenged to be able to get out of bed in the morning, just having, you know, to deal with the loss, or dealing with the loss, you know what I mean? Not, you know, just realizing every additional day past his death that this really did happen.
Yeah.
You know, and as I told you, Dave, some people in the industry responded irresponsibly, in bad taste.
Who are you talking about?
With regards, Dave, to like it's funny with regards, isn't it? Like ESPN or, you know, TMZ, these people want to like cover it. You know, Heath could win the Olympic 22 times and they'd be like, no, we're not covering it.
Right.
You know, Coleman could make a comeback and, you know, win the Olympia. Let's just make up, you know, crazy stories. Or Dexter could win at 50 years old. ESPN, TMZ, they're not around. Only when it's time to put their foot on bodybuilding. Only when it, you know, it's convenient to them to be able to throw bodybuilding under the bus do they come into the picture.
Sure.
So, you know, anything that they have to say, you know, take it, you know, in the context of they don't even cover bodybuilding when anything good is happening. I'm not saying it's not newsworthy, but isn't it interesting that they never cover it?
Yeah. Yeah, no. But I know you were very critical of the way Sean Ray covered it. when the news first came out. Why don't you talk to us about that?
Well, he had, I mean, you know, a normal human being would have feelings of just sadness, distraught, even anger. You know, I think it would be normal to be like angry and frustrated, you know, at someone's death. And, you know, the problem is he was jumping to conclusions. He was posting things like, you know, in essence, I told you so. He's putting things like, in parentheses, you know, choked. It's kind of, you know, on something like it was a, you know, he didn't believe it, like it was, you know, the point being is that on the level everyone else was at, he was not on that level. He was not on a level of shock. He was not on a level of surprise, sadness, frustration, empathy. He made it about him, which he usually does, and went out and attacked people, made accusations about Chad Nichols, and it's just irresponsible and the mark of a sociopath. And you know, to not have any time, to not provide, to be careful enough to provide time for people to straighten things out in their own minds or to grieve, because a coroner will tell us what happened. You know, not the conjecture of, you know, some guy sitting behind a computer screen. And so I blame Steve Bleckman actually for that, because he employs him, and you know, he knows what's going on, and you know, Sean will be Sean. That's one thing about Sean is we had the expectation, unfortunately, that he'd do something like this reckless, immediately after hearing about Dallas, and he did. So it's not surprising. But they took the stuff down, which means somebody probably took too much heat from it, probably Bleckman, and said, take it down. So, you know, in terms of where his moral compass is, you know, it's spinning around in circles. And that goes for definitely Steve Bleckman, too. You know, he can't be trusted to have a media site and sit back and relax and wait for a coroner to come in. He, you know, puts a stamp of approval until he feels too much heat to let people run their mouth. Yeah. You know, frankly, Dave, how I feel about it still is I don't even know the guy. So, of course, sadness. But like I said, you know, he's somebody's family member, and he's somebody's best friend. And, you know, people should, your initial reaction should be grief and focus on family and his friends and their loss, not on, I told you so.
Well, I mean, come on. We know that Sean's about Sean, and he was dying, you know, ever since he took a lot of heat for putting Dallas down at the Australia Grand Prix earlier in the year, where Dallas passed out on stage. He was dying to say, I told you so. You see, Chad Nichols killed him. You know, so it doesn't surprise me. But you're right. Bleckman is to blame, because Bleckman allows that rhetoric to be put up. Sean wasn't putting it up on his own pages. He was putting it up on MD. And, controversy, you know, until I'm sure someone made a phone call to him.
Dave, there's absolutely, if you believe that and you think that information is accurate and you think it's, you know, helpful, you should keep it up. So somebody made that decision to take it down.
Well, because he probably got a phone call from someone screaming at him, I'm sure. So it is what it is. You know, you know, Dallas could have died of a heart attack. He could have choked. Unlikely that he probably just choked without some other incident going on. I've heard crazy theories, Chris, from Tren cough caused his larynx, his airway to close off. I heard, you know, he choked on vitamins. I heard conspiracy theories by Phil Herndon even put one out that he wasn't actually at his apartment. He was actually in the gym with Josh Lenardowitz, who found him, and Flex Lewis, which is not true, because they have the 911 call that they put up on TMZ that actually you could actually hear Josh Lenardowitz. You know, he came home to the apartment and he called 911 and he gave the address and everything. So there's a lot of theories. Whether we'll ever really know what happened or not, Chris, remains to be seen, because I don't know if anyone's going to release the autopsy report. You know, I think a lot of this is an embarrassment to some people, and I don't know why it is. But people may, you know, sometimes families don't want people to know what really happened, and they may cover it up. I hope the family releases it.
Dave, it's the family's right not to to do what they want.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, and it's just people giving their comments, not knowing nothing about nothing. I mean, the only comment I have is, you know, besides to extend my condolences to his family, who I don't know, is to be critical of people who are in positions of what should be responsibility, who should be bringing the sport up rather than tearing it down, who should, you know, this is in regards to, you know, Sean Ray and Steve Blackman, who should be old enough to have the wisdom to be able to think a top bodybuilder death is the tragedy, and to sit back and, out of respect for him, what he's accomplished, his family members, his best friends, to sit back and not say anything.
Yeah, because you can't. I mean, that's why I didn't speculate, because I don't know. I don't know what causes death. That's why they do an autopsy on people who are under the age of like 35. It's mandatory because it's not usual for someone of that age to die. Okay, assuming that they didn't get hit by a car or something like that. So it is a random occurrence. He wasn't in the gym. He wasn't doing cardio. He was just hanging out in his apartment, ostensibly trying to maybe have a meal or something like that. And it's tragic, because you start, you sit back and you try to make sense of it all. You try to figure out what could have happened, why this happened to this young man, and there is no sense. Sometimes we can't understand the wisdom of the universe and why things happen the way they do, but they did. And all we can do is, support his family. And I know Aaron Singerman started he took a lot of heat over this. He tried to start this Dallas McCarver Foundation, because Dallas, I think, grew up in a difficult childhood, and he wanted to always open up a center for troubled kids. So how Aaron managed to try to, launch this nonprofit organization in 6 hours after Dallas died, I don't know. And Nick Trigilli...
You know what, Dave? What? You know what the problem is?
Yeah.
This may sound critical of Aaron, and I don't want to criticize anyone around him. You know what? Because people panic. They go into, people go into a state when someone's close to them die, and they want to do something good. I didn't know that about Aaron. I didn't know about just sit back and wait. There's always, you can start it next month.
Right. A lot of people are saying...
Speak with his mother. Speak with his mother and his best friend and his brother to see, unless Aaron is his best friend, what he would want, if anything. It's one thing to say, I would like to do this, but, it's amazing how... Maybe it's because of social media and everything's in real time, but there used to be, how long do Jewish families grieve for a death in the family? Is it a year?
Yeah, I think so, before they put the tombstone up. But I think you're right. And
the point is, people need time to reflect before they run and jump and start foundations and start collecting money to get the ball rolling and get the kids signed up, and it's just odd. It's odd to me.
Well,
it's just different than from what I think is that's honorable to start something in his name, but just step back and. The guy's been dead a week, and everyone, he was chewing gum wrong while he's doing cardio, and people have their crazy theories, and he's dead, and you can't bring him back, and to some degree, the best thing to do is try to support his family, which I don't even know how to do that.
Well, he was, right off the bat, he was at Aaron's place when I was doing the radio show last week with Aaron, because Aaron was the guest host. And he was right there. And then later that day, he was, that was it. He was dead. It was the craziest thing. And a lot of people are giving Aaron heat because of the fact that he started this foundation so quickly after his death, Nick Trigili, who evidently was friends with him, who's another IFBB pro we all know, he went on a Facebook, I guess, massacre on Aaron. I mean, just bitching him out and saying, how dare you start this? No one even knows you got your own name. He posted the articles of incorporation online, and, you know, he's like, you know, how dare you sell T-shirts and you're giving discount codes for your company on the T-shirt. You know, most people say, if you buy a T-shirt, you know, why would you give a discount code on the T-shirt if you're trying to raise money for a foundation? But let's face it, Aaron raised, you know, got people, I think they're up to like almost $60,000, you know, $57,000. Now, where that money is going, I don't know. I don't know, who, you know, anything about it. So I'm not encouraging or not encouraging people to donate. But the bottom line is that Nick Trigili and a bunch of other people are very upset with Aaron, and you kind of didn't know the situation, and you're voicing the similar, I guess you could say, I don't even know what the word would be, arguments against the fact that maybe he should have waited a little longer rather than trying to do this like the day after. Now I understand they're transferring this foundation name into Dallas's mother's name. So I don't know. I think you're right. Sometimes the grieving process should occur first, and then you should think about, you know, business decisions later. I don't know really I don't know if there is a responsible thing to do or not do, but I think sometimes just do nothing. I always say the 48-hour rule. Don't do anything for 48 hours. Then think about it.
That's, you know, when someone dies, don't do anything for, you know, 2 months. Mm-hmm. I mean, see what, you know, see what's important to people who have the greatest responsibility for him on this earth, meaning his parents. See what, you know, consult with them in detail, you know.
But don't you think that people are more generous right after something like this shocking happens? So maybe it was a good move to start this foundation, sell these T-shirts, because people right now are grieving, they're in shock, and they're not afraid to give some money over. You wait a month, Chris, and then ask people for money, they've already forgotten that Dallas is dead.
Dave, that's the nature of death in general and tragedy in general is, you know, I thought of this when Dallas died. Nobody gives two damn shits about Joey to being dead. Mm-hmm. And I think of the
lost Chris there for a second. Well, the bottom line is that it was a tragic event that happened in our bodybuilding world. The shock is still being heard, and you know, the people are calling for all kinds of, you know, changes in the sport, but no one even knows what the cause of death was. You know, it could be as simple as him literally choking. You know, I highly doubt that. I don't believe that. I think that something else initiated that choking, but the bottom line is it could be a simple fluke accident. So it's totally wrong to make a knee-jerk response and try to say that, hey, this guy choked. Chris, we got you back. Continue what you're saying.
No, I just, I'm getting an echo, John.
Oh, you getting an echo?
You know, in terms of starting to go immediately after his death, I think it's better to wait. That's not to say that Aaron didn't have good intentions. I mean, but, I mean, I do things myself with good intentions with bad results. You know, or good intentions, and people criticize me on it, and I think, you know, God, why are people criticizing me? I'm just trying to be helpful. So, you know, they say the path to hell is paved in good intentions, right? Someone told me that recently, actually. So, you know, he had, you know, probably had good intentions. It's just, you know, and in terms of death, where you said, Dave, well, maybe if you waited a year or something, or waited 6 months and started this, you know, a GoFundMe campaign on Dallas's behalf, that people won't be so impacted, and so they'll be less likely to open up their wallets and, quote, give. Well, you know what? If they're not ready to, if at 6 months, if they can't give, then they're not the support that you need anyway. And they're not really, you know, I mean, what are they really giving for? They're just giving for some knee-jerk emotional support right off the bat, rather than, yeah, this sounds like a foundation that is something that I want to get behind. I believe in. It makes sense. It helps kids. I'll support it. I mean, those are the best people to have, not necessarily the knee-jerk, you know, God, I heard Dallas about his untimely death. He has $100. And the interesting thing about death is, like I said about Joe Eater, is, you know, when I heard that Dallas died, the weird part of me thought, you know, I don't know how long Joe Eater's been dead, but nobody really cares. You know, so the longer you get away from the person's death, the less impact it has. and you know, it just interesting that I thought, you know, how sad. In 2 years, nobody will really care too much about Dallas. They may reflect on it on the anniversary or whatever. I mean, that's just human nature, you know, myself included. Joe Eder did a million great things for me, and I don't even know if I appreciate it now. You know, I would say I talk great about him, but you know, he's gone, and you know, how much do people honor people, you know, after their deaths? Well, it's a terrible subject all around.
Joe Eder was also 90-something years old, Chris, and so I think that's
great.
That changes things. When someone young dies, it's a completely different reality. I mean, Rich Piana.
Well, you can say that, but at the same time, Joe Eder at 96 years had 96 years to positively influence people's lives. I mean, if you wanted to ask Jay, we influenced him, and you know, and Haney, and just, you know, people he's come in contact with. You know, people talk bad about him, whatever, but you know, he did have 93 years, so you'd think, well, maybe the opposite. Maybe look at the impact that they have.
Right. But you know what?
That people would remember them. And then Dallas is 25. You know, Billy Joel said it. You know, the good die young.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Also, Joe Eder in the last, you know, probably 5 or 6 years of his life really wasn't present. And you know how the memory of people today is. It's like about 6 months. If you haven't done anything in 6 months, they don't know who you are anymore. So Dallas was so relevant in our industry, and that's why his death was felt so hard. Also, to segue, we lost another, you know, icon in our industry, if you want to call a social media icon at least, Rich Piana, who had been on life support for about a week and a half to 2 weeks after, you know, dropping in his house. That I haven't got serious confirmation in terms of an autopsy report, but from my inside sources, I heard that he had a heart attack. He fell, hit his head. The hitting his head part really wasn't the issue, but his brain was deprived of oxygen from the heart attack, and he had never really regained consciousness in a sense where he was talking with people. So I think they decided to pull the life support, and then you know, unfortunately he passed as well in the same week. Obviously, Rich not 26 years old, he's 46, but the impact is still felt very hard in our industry, Chris, because he was someone who was so popular. He's probably the most popular social media person on the entire internet, certainly on YouTube. And anyone who is doing anything on YouTube always mentioned Rich Piana because they knew they would get hits. I mean, we did probably the last sit-down interview with Rich when he came to the studio to deal with all this, you know, the racist phone conversation that was released. We've talked about that ad infinitum, and you know, Rich had kind of, you know, really rejuvenated his, I guess you could say, his reputation at that point. But he still was someone that everyone couldn't get enough of. And he lived a very fast life by his own, you know, admission. He lived a life on the edge. You know, he did not live conservatively by any means, and I'm sure he pushed the envelope in many different areas of his life, and who am I to judge at this point? But the bottom line is that he did die, and that is also being felt. And now people are saying, well, it's steroids, it's this, it's that. Everyone wants to point the finger at what caused Rich Piana. The only thing that caused Rich Piana's death was Rich Piana, and I think he'd be the first one to admit that. Different scenario than the Dallas McCarver, who was a very young individual, and we didn't expect to see that from. What is your impression of the Rich Piana death, and what does that mean to our industry? Will it change anything?
No, I don't think anything changes, really. I mean, what are the expectations for change? That you know, that he had a heart attack and people will be aware of. I mean, what is the expectation there?
I don't know. People are saying, you know, maybe it was irresponsible for, you know, the things he said. My take on it, I'll give you my take, and then you can give me your take. My take is, number one, that Rich Piana is an entertainer. He was an entertainer first. Whatever he did in his personal life, most of it was super sensationalized because that's what he did. That's how he made his money. People loved that persona, that character that he displayed. Unfortunately for him, it wasn't all an act. A lot of what he, you know, displayed to the public was stuff that he was doing in his personal life, you know, at home. And that is probably what led to his death, you know, unfortunately. If he would have just been an actor, in a sense, he'd probably be still here and he'd be laughing all the way to the bank, you know. But he lived what he preached and what he showed off of his physique. And I think that really, you know, you can't run your body at that level of speed okay, and expect not to have ramifications to what you're doing. And while it may seem irresponsible to put that message out, I don't think most people watched what Rich Piana did and say, hey, I want to go inject whatever into my arms and make my arms 30 inches, or I want to tattoo my whole body, or I don't think most people did what Rich did. I think they just enjoyed the entertainment that he provided to the industry.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, with regards to his death, nobody wants to see anyone die, period, even if they're, they don't like that person. And Rich had a tremendous amount of fans, and he had people who didn't like him. And again, the natural response is like sadness, I mean, you can always find, lots of great attributes in people that you might have differences with. And I think MD had an also I told you so over there on that scenario, didn't they?
I'm sure. That's what Blackman does.
So, Rich was, I think I agree with you there, an entertainer more than anything else. I mean, I don't think he would consider himself, he'd consider himself living, like, quote, the bodybuilding lifestyle, the 6 meals, the training, staying in shape, obviously. But his whole, what made him popular is, his persona. And, it's walking around with the arms and the shoulders like that. In his case, you think like something can't be altogether healthy with, 40-inch arms and 40-inch shoulders all the time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but you know what? Look at Greg Valentino. Greg Valentino's got big, huge arms, and he's not dying. He takes care of himself now. So I think Rich, once again, was leading that rebel, without a cause, lifestyle.
You know what someone told me recently, and this does not pertain to Dallas, and it does not pertain to Rich.
Yeah.
But somebody who's very smart said to me, Chris, you don't know what bodybuilders, how they live outside the gym. And I said, what do you mean by that? And he said, some of these people, and this, again, does not pertain to Dallas, and because I don't know, I'm just making the point, and Rich, is, they're on prescription drugs for depression, plus they're using things, plus they use recreational drugs. A lot of bodybuilders, not a lot of bodybuilders, but people do, painkillers and smoke pot and drink, and it's like not the greatest combo for optimum health. So there's a risk there for sure in bodybuilding.
Yeah. Well,
and I think that's some of the fallout. Some of the fallout from this is people will speculate, and there's a logical reason to speculate that bodybuilding is not a healthy sport. It's not like cross country running.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but Chris, you could have a woman with 10,000 cc boob implants, okay? Because she's obsessed with big boobs, and that's what she does. She's a stripper or whatever, and that doesn't mean that she's snorting lines of cocaine in the bathroom because she's doing that. So there is a way to do it where, I mean, if Rich would have had huge arms and that just would have been his thing, hey, I want arm implants and I'm gonna use this and parlay this into a popular YouTube channel, he'd probably be fine, But I think he'd get caught up in the whole. I'm, this outlaw type of guy, and I'm going to do everything to the maximum extreme, and I'm going to put it out there honestly on the internet because, you know what? That's who I am. And people just got behind it. Think about it. This gangster lifestyle, that Rich kind of personified in his 5% nutrition line with the tattoos and the this and the that. It caught. He did the right thing at the right time, and it worked. Totally. And people got behind it. They thought it was cool, and for whatever reason, they followed him and loved everything he did. And it was because we're in this era of reality TV where people want to live vicariously through other people. But I don't necessarily think it was sending a bad message, because I think most people can decipher entertainment from reality. And I don't think anyone would actually go out and do the stuff that Rich did, although I'm sure there's a couple people that might, but most people just watched it vicariously, like maybe, you know, I did, or, you know, Johnny did. I don't see Johnny going out there and pumping, you know, 800 cc's of oil into his arms because he liked Rich Piana. We liked Rich because we liked him as a person. He was a good guy. He was a fun guy to be around, and you know, that's, the industry needs more people who are interesting. Unfortunately, some people take it to the nth extreme. One more,
Well,
I wanted to mention.
Let me just say,
Oh, go ahead.
Dave. Let me just say one thing outside of, you know, the persona that he had. You know, he had the incident with race, and you know, myself included, we questioned his ability to judge people on who they are. And to his credit, he came on right across from me 3 feet away, not on Skype or on the internet, and laid it out all on the line for you. Yeah. You know, which is you know, admirable, and you know, he came across as honest.
Yeah, but that's who Rich was. Rich was an honest guy who just said, "Here's my life." You know, I'm sure he didn't talk about everything he did. He obviously had some demons.
Nobody does.
He had demons, I mean, you know, like we all do, and he was battling them, and maybe that was his undoing. But he provided us with a lot of, you know, joy and entertainment, and he made the sport more interesting, and he changed really the scope of the sport, if you want to look at it from that perspective, not from the competition point of how you market yourself. And he might have provided a lot of opportunities, Chris, for people now in the future to make a living via their YouTube channels, via their social media, because he proved that it was a viable way to make a living. And that's a pioneer. You know, he was a pioneer in that aspect, and you have to really, you know, give him, you know, kudos for that. But I don't want to, you know, pass over the death of another person in our industry who maybe a lot of people don't know, but we probably would have made a bigger deal about his death had Dallas and Rich not died in the same week. But you probably knew him better than I did. Kyle Norris, who won the Junior Nationals in 1989 in Memphis, Tennessee. This was also the same show that Linda Murray won, and Porter Cottrell had guest posed at. And he was second the year that Mike Matarazzo won the USA Championship. I didn't really know that. Talk to me about it. We have some footage of him on stage. You knew him better than I did.
I mean, I just remember, what do you got him in black trunks there, Dave? He had great quad separation.
Yeah, black
full
trunks.
Pecs, great abs, shoulder arm detail. You know, I mean, his calling card was his most muscular. He was, you know, he was full. He was tight. I mean, I only know him from seeing him around at shows back in that day. Right. I did know that he won the juniors. I never knew that he came in second. And I knew he was one of these guys who came across as like a hard worker, but, you know, very close to like pro level. But of course, in those days, they gave one pro card. So, you know, this day and age should definitely be a pro.
Yeah.
Because there's more opportunities to become a pro.
This was at the 1988 Junior Nationals. He won the 88 Junior Nationals, I believe. Sorry, I think I said 89. And, you know, it's sad when you hear something like this. A guy 55 years old, another guy, I don't know what he was doing with his life at this point because he kind of dropped off the face of the scene of the bodybuilding scene. But here's a guy who, you know, was another guy of the 90s, you know, or maybe late 80s, early 90s. I mean, he came up with all these top guys, and he beat a lot of them and dropped off the face of the earth. I wish we could have interviewed him. I didn't really know too much about him, but he's no longer with us. I mean, it's kind of weird in a sense. You know, you're not seeing 100,000 bodybuilders dropping dead, Chris, but you're seeing a lot of top guys dropping. And not just guys that are competing, just guys that are off the scene. It seems like we've lost a lot of people, especially from that 90s era. I hope it's not a foreshadowing of what's going to happen in the future of the guys we're seeing today.
We don't know, Dave. We don't know. Let me just put that into context. You probably, high school, I'm sure if you high school reunion this week, you'd say, God, he's dead. How'd he die?
Right.
You know, so, I mean, give it to, you know, some perspective on, I mean, people do die. You know, not everyone lives to 73 years old in perfect health, or 84, you know, or 92 like your father.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? People people have weak hearts, and people have, bad habits, or people have weakish hearts with bad habits, or people just have bad genetics for, I mean, coronary heart disease still gets between coronary heart disease and what are the top 2 cancers in men? Prostate cancer, heart attacks. I mean, it's going to take a lot of people over the age of 55. So,
right.
I mean, Kyle could have just been I don't mean it that way, no disrespect, but he could have been a number,
Well, it's funny. I was talking to Phil Hernan this past week, who's battling prostate cancer. He luckily discovered it very early on. He's going to come down. He's moving down to Florida. We're going to get him to come to the studio probably in the next week or two, but talk about it. And he's, been dealing with some radiation treatments now that he feels are working very well. But he didn't know he had it. He just, he goes to the doctor every year, and they didn't like the fact that his PSA was a little high, and they did a biopsy and they found it. So you're right. That's not caused by anything he did. That's a statistic, and that's statistically what happens in this country. Heart disease and cancer are very big killers of people, unfortunately, in all walks of life. It doesn't discriminate. Bodybuilder, non-bodybuilder, runner, smoker, everyone gets hit. Obviously, people who are doing things that are, going to raise their risk are going to get hit more frequently. But you're right. But I just feel that it's kind of weird that we have seen a lot of deaths in our industry. And maybe it's just because we're conscious of these top-name guys when they go down, because they're our heroes. They're our icons. They're the guys that, that we wanted to try to emulate. And when you see a guy of like a Mike Matarazzo proportion, it hurts inside, as a bodybuilder fan, as a fan first, forget the fact I competed. I know you would feel probably the same way. It's a big loss. And so, it's a lot of young guys that kind of looked up to Dallas as maybe their icon. Hey, I want to be like this guy. He's 26 years old. Look what he's accomplished. They're hurting. I think the younger population of people out there, I feel, are hurting more because that was a guy they looked up to.
Yeah, well, going back to the point of death is life is fragile. I mean, we all know people. I mean, life is fragile. I mean, part of the lesson. I mean, not part of my takeaway from the Dallas McCarver is my perspective is like, wow, he's 13 years older than my 13-year-old, and he's half the age I am.
Yeah.
So I mean, that really puts it into perspective for me. But also, it's there's no guarantee that that I don't have a heart attack tomorrow, that I don't get cancer back tomorrow, or that just somebody doesn't hit me when I'm driving down the street. When I'm driving my car and they tail end me and I die. Not to make it about myself, but to put it into perspective of the fact that there is zero guarantees that you're going to live until you're 80. That's why I always encourage people to chase their dreams, but also don't be reckless. And that's not only in bodybuilding, that's in anything. Stay within the alleyway of not hurting others, but chase your dreams if they're in business and they're in bodybuilding, they're in sports, whatever, because your life can be taken away from you on an instant, because like I always said, you had no say or input in terms of coming into this life. So you have no say in when you're going to leave either.
Yeah. Well, I think that takes us, we're going to have to go to a commercial break, but before we do, I think that really takes me to my quote of the week very well, which was by George Patton, General George Patton. And the quote is kind of comparable to what you just said, and you didn't even know what the quote of the week was going to be, so it's a good segue. He said, "A good plan violently executed now, right now, is better than a perfect plan executed next week." So don't always wait for perfection. Go with what your gut tells you. Go with your passions. Do what you like. Do what you love, because you're not guaranteed any time on this planet. You never know when your day is up. And that, I think this past week of these 3 deaths really showed us that don't wait, because you don't know if tomorrow is not guaranteed. And I do send my condolences out to Kyle Norris's family, Rich Piana's family, and of course Dallas McCarver. Guys, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, more Heavy Muscle Radio. Welcome back to Heavy Muscle Radio. I'm Dave Palumbo talking with the technician, Chris Aceto, on this end of August day. We got Labor Day, Chris, coming up this weekend. I'm going to be teaching my Secrets to Becoming a Diet Guru course. I have 2 spots left. I think a lot of people are going away for the weekend, so you're lucky. If you guys want to come down to Cape Coral, Florida, and take my Secrets to Becoming a Diet Guru course, 10 hours, everything you could possibly want to know about how to write diets, supplementation, performance-enhancing drugs, all the protocols, off-season, pre-contest, men, women, detoxification, site injection. I go over everything, okay? It's a very popular course. There's 2 spots left. You can sign up at davepalumbo.com. You can contact me if you want. I highly recommend it. These spots fill up very quickly. Usually the classes are closed by now, but you still have a couple days left. Chris, we're almost into September, which means we're almost at the Olympia weekend, which is going to be super exciting. I want everyone to check out all the pre-Olympia interviews we're doing, analysis videos, because there's going to be a lot of them coming up these next 2 weeks. All the coverage being sponsored by Yamamoto Nutrition and Protan. They have stepped up to the plate and are making all this possible, plus our trip out to Las Vegas to cover the Mr. Olympia competition, which is super exciting. I wanted to mention a couple other things. Oh, speaking of Las Vegas, Chris, I got a call from my good friend Chris Angel, the magician out there. As you know, I do his diet, and he says, I need your help. I have someone who's like a father to me out there in Vegas, and he needs to lose weight. I said, Chris, who is it? He says, Tony Orlando. Do you remember Tony Orlando and Dawn?
Of course I did. I used to watch that show like every Friday night or every Saturday.
Tie a yellow ribbon round the old oak tree. It was 3 long years.
It was how we closed the show.
Yeah, you know the funny thing was, I said it to Amanda. I told her the story. She's like, "Who the hell is that?"
I know.
We're dating ourselves, Chris.
He used to have a variety show like on Friday nights.
Yeah, I loved it.
8 o'clock, because it ended at 9, and I'd stay up to watch that show. And I used to ask my mother what the what was the the meaning of the song. And crazy, right?
Yeah, he evidently he's like 300 pounds. He's getting out of breath doing his act. He's still actually performing in Las Vegas. Can you believe it?
Yeah, I can believe it. That's where 300-pound older celebrities go to
Elvis.
Continue to cash in.
Right. Well, he doesn't want to have a heart attack. So Chris is like, I need you to talk to him. So hopefully when I go out for the Olympia, I'll sit down with Tony Orlando. What a blast from the past that is, and I'll help him out.
You have to get Johnny to put up a video of that song with him singing it.
I'll just sing it for us. I'll sing it when we take the show out. You and I will do a little rendition of it. Let's see, what else do I got here? So I wanted to talk about Jon Bones Jones, okay? The MMA fighter that a lot of people feel might be the greatest MMA talent ever to hit the scene. He was sponsored by GAT Nutrition. A couple of years ago, he failed a drug test, because they test for performance-enhancing drugs in the UFC, Chris, and he failed the drug test. He tried to blame it on the GAT Nutrition supplements, that they were tainted, which we all know is a load of crap. So he made his comeback, and he had a big championship fight, which he won, and he just failed the test again. He failed for oral Turinabol, which is, for those of you who don't know, it's kind of similar to Diana. I always call it a weaker Dianabol, but it's an oral drug, and to fail a steroid test for an oral drug is kind of unusual, because they don't have very long half-lives. Chris, I mean, is this, as Victor Conti would say, a failed IQ test, essentially, on his part?
Well, I mean, before we came on the air, I knew who you had asked me. You said about the drug test, and what I say? I said, what's the talking line? I didn't even know what the talking line was, and you said they already used that.
Yeah,
which was a supplement, because ESPN, when a bodybuilder dies and they have no interest in bodybuilding, come flying around the RxMuscle studios or whatever when someone like Dallas passes away, or Rich Piana, they're the first ones to take the bait on it was a supplement line, and some senator wants to shut down GAT next.
Yeah.
Thing
Well, you can't use the same excuse twice. You know what I mean? Because they warned him. There's no look in the NFL and the Major League Baseball. They have a no supplement rule. That means that if you want to take a supplement and it causes you to test positive, shame on you. Okay, so that's why it's important to use a line of supplements that you trust the quality of and that it's not shady. You know, I have a lot of sports athletes who use my Species Nutrition line of products because they know, first of all, I don't even have any products that are drug-like in effect, and secondly, they know that I have a very high-quality line. I test everything with third parties, so you're not going to get that with a product line like mine, but GAD is a very reputable company, too. I know they don't have tainted supplements, and Jon Bones Jones knows that, too. And I don't think he's blaming them this time, but they're trying to find any reason. But the bottom line is that oral compounds only are active in your system for like 48 hours. So, I mean, this guy must have been taking pills right before he got on stage or got on the in the octagon. They had a fight. So I don't know why he would be that stupid to do it.
Yeah. So I mean, if you're in his shoes and you're his handlers, what do you do?
I don't know. I hear they may ban him for 4 years now, because that's this. You know, this is his second violation. So, I mean, that basically ends his career as far as I'm concerned. And here's a guy who might be one of the most talented fighters in all of MMA. We know that these athletes use PEDs. The difference is most of them don't get caught using them. So I think he has poor advisors is really what it amounts to. Because, you know, if someone's telling him to take the stuff and not telling him that he's going to get caught, you got to be crazy. I mean, you have to be very arrogant to take stuff and after you've already been caught once before and not have a good plan of action of how to not get test positive. This guy obviously did not have a good plan of action, and he had poor advisors. So, I don't. And then I was watching on ESPN. They were trying to blame the fact that he's hanging around with quote bodybuilders for the reason why he's doing these drugs. Like, in other words, the bodybuilders are, like, negatively influencing him to take steroids. Like they put a gun to his head and said, hey, you better take steroids, man. And he's like, yeah, this is cool because I'm hanging out with the bodybuilders. It's ludicrous.
ESPN, man. Is that what they said?
Yeah, they said it's the negative influence of the bodybuilders that he's hanging out with.
You know, people who live in glass houses shouldn't throw stones, right? I mean, they cover sports that they like to, they like to make believe that are clean sports. You know, NFL, baseball, hockey, you name it. I mean, Are they mostly clean? I don't know. Is steroids prevalent in those sports? Yes. You know, period. You know, it's like the make-believeness of like the Tour de France or the make-believeness of the Olympics, you know?
Right.
I mean, the Russians, how many Russians were disqualified? Like 300, 500? I mean, just in the last couple of years. I mean, nobody knew about it, but we'd go to the Olympics and bring our kids and make believe once they play those songs and you know, show the rings that it's, you know, it's a family sporting business.
Like a radio playing. Yeah, no, Chris, you're 100% right. You're 100% right. I mean,
just bodybuilding, just such an easy target.
That's what I wanted to bring up. We're an easy target. You said it right.
It's an easy target, wedge issue. It's like a make-believe strawman issue, so that they can feel great about, you know, here we are at the World Series, and you know, the drug-free World Series. Yeah, right.
Look. It is what it is. It's just I feel bad for the guy because, you know, he is a great talent, and we do know that all these guys use stuff. He's just not a very smart guy, obviously, because if he failed this test, once again, he failed an IQ test. Everyone knows how this stuff works. If you're going to use stuff, you better get some good people advising you so that you don't fail the test. What a dummy. Speaking of people who made a lot of money this past weekend, I don't know if you watched the McGregor-Mayweather fight.
Yeah, I watched it.
I think Mayweather made over $250 million in the fight. McGregor, they're saying close to $100 million. I mean, whoever, you know, people can say what they want. I mean, it was the greatest marketing of a fight I've ever seen in my life. I mean, they knew, hey, how can we make a lot of money? Let's take Mayweather, who's retired, who's one victory away from eclipsing the Rocky Marciano undefeated mark in boxing, and let's pit him up against the most popular guy in MMA. They did it remember when they did the Muhammad Ali versus the pro wrestler back in like the 70s?
Yeah.
It was similar to that. I mean, McGregor probably knew he didn't have a chance in hell to beat Mayweather, but who cares? He's like, I'm making $100 million. I mean, I'd fight, Mayweather for $100 million. I mean, I don't even know how to box, But the bottom line is that, the fight was entertaining. People, as long as people felt they got their money's worth, I personally think that Mayweather carried McGregor a couple of rounds extra just to make people feel like they got a good fight. But who knows,
Well, he measured him out the first. I mean, I said before, he measured him out. It took him the first 2 rounds. Mayweather just was, like a dog sniffing around the hedges, just trying to figure out, okay, how am I going to take the guy out?
Right.
And then, interestingly, you see the dichotomy with regards to their training. By round 5, you could see that McGregor was a tremendous athlete, right? But was exhausted, whereas Mayweather could go 20 rounds, if need be. And if you're not sure who was going to win that fight, you could have done a live with Jay, and he probably put his net worth on Mayweather, because I know where I was sitting when Jay said this guy will. This was a while ago. After going to see Floyd train, he said he's the hardest training athlete I've ever seen, and he will never ever lose.
Right. Well,
and he said that. Jay said it matter-of-factly, but also with bewilderment in his. You know what I mean? Like, Chris, I can't tell you how hard this guy trains, how focused he is.
Right. Well,
it's not to say, but I mean, he's training for 10 and 12 rounds, right? Because that's the nature of boxing. Whereas McGregor's, who's not a boxer, obviously, but he's training for like 3 minutes. 5 minutes, 8 minutes. He's spent by the time round 6 comes along.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because Mayweather said he paid Uncle Sam $26 million last year in taxes. He's going to pay him a lot more. He's going to pay him a lot more this year, I imagine, from all the money he made for this fight. It's Triple H told me once, because I don't know if you remember, Mayweather was actually in WrestleMania one year. I think it was 2 or 3 years ago. And
he looks like a little kid.
Triple H had to teach him some moves, some wrestling moves. So he spent some time with him for about a week. And he said that Mayweather gets it better than anyone other athlete out there about the marketing of sports. So he said he's the #1 marketing guy, and most of what he puts out there is a complete act because he knows that act earns him bucks. And, not to segue back to Rich Piana, but Rich Piana knew that too. The only difference is I think Rich Piana was it wasn't just an act with him. He actually was living the act, too. But, Mayweather, throws money around. He lights it on fire. But you know what? That's a lot of hype and hoopla because that's who he is, and he knows people go crazy over that. The haters love to hate him, and the people who love him love to love him even more. And that's it. Well, you see him throwing money up. He's, that's an act, And
Mayweather spent. Did you see Mayweather spent $2 million on the after party?
Yeah, I believe it, but he probably had a sponsor for it. Put up the money.
Yeah.
Probably had a vodka company put up all the money for it.
He could ask the IRS if he could take, if he spent the $2 million, is that a deduction off the 20?
I'm sure it was. Believe me, it's an expense of the whole experience, the whole weekend, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure that private jet was written off everything, too, that they took all over. It's funny because they took a private jet, but they both were on the same jet. So obviously they couldn't have hated each other too much,
Well, they can't. I mean, there's only so much hate you can. Were they going to fight each other on the jet? I mean,
they were fighting over who's going to get more money. That's all they were fighting over. Believe me.
Yeah. Well, they're good fighters, right?
Well, this coming weekend, Chris, is the Masters Pro World Championships. That's a Gary Udich show he puts on. I think it's a brilliant thing they do. I'm surprised more people don't participate. You pay a small entry fee, but there's prize money to be won, and there's it's all Masters. I'm looking at the website now, and I see that the list of bodybuilders is pretty small. I think Dennis Hobson is the only 40 and over guy in the event. The 50 and over, there's about 6 guys. And then you get to the 60 and over, Chris, and you have like 10 guys, which is great because I guess the guys who are in there, over a certain age realize they have no chance of placing at an open show, so they save it for this one show every year. And I think it's a great opportunity for people who want to still compete in their 60s. There's even a 70 and over, Chris.
I got a question for you, Dave. ESPN feature in the over 60 and over 70 division at Gary Show?
Only if someone dies, Chris.
What phonies? You know what I mean? They'll jump and stomp on bodybuilding, and you're going to get an over 60 class where people are going to look insane compared to the average person.
Yeah.
I mean, insane. And even an over 70 class, where, going to look insane compared to the average 70-year-old in this country. ESPN's nowhere to be found, and they're owned by Disney.
Yep. Well, our good friend Art Gutierrez will be making his pro debut. He said this will be his first and last pro show. Bud Woodruff, who I've seen for years at the Masters levels, will be competing also in James Arrington. So 3 guys in that 70 and over. I can't wait. I'm going to interview the winner with no doubt in my mind because that's a tremendous accolade. I also see, once you get to the classic physique divisions, you're seeing a lot of guys competing. So I'm glad that Gary is giving these people a place to go, especially the older guys who, and older women for that matter. My client last year, Susie Blaylock, competed and she won prize money. She's a 60-plus-year-old anesthesiologist who was overweight her whole life, and she turned pro at 60 and over, and she made prize money. I said, Susie, you did better than a lot of the pros out there who make nothing. So it's a great event. They're holding it in conjunction, obviously, with the North American Championships. Good luck to everyone. I have a couple athletes. I'm sure you have some athletes in that show, and a lot of pro cards going to be given away this coming weekend on Labor Day. The same weekend I am holding the Secrets of Becoming a Diet Guru course. So guys, support Gary Udit and out there in Pittsburgh, and hopefully everyone out there will come back as a pro. Because I know they're giving a lot of pro cards, so we're going to see probably 100 pros being crowned this coming weekend. Chris, anything else you want to add? Final words on the whole traumatic week, I guess you could say, in the bodybuilding world, because it really was.
I'd like you to ask the questions that you would like to ask to say me, like, you asked me for my opinion. I would like you to take the winner of the Gary Udit show, over 60 and over 70, and ask them for their perspective. See what type of wisdom that they can impart on the whole scenario, because, fact is, most people over the 60s and 70 mark are a hell of a lot smarter than people in their 40s and 50s, 30s, 40s, 50s. They've lived a long life, and they have something, a perspective that's important to hear about. Because while I'm leaving this show on a good note, but at the same time, I'm still thinking of Dallas's family. But I'm also, unfortunately, trying to clear out of my mind the idea of, ESPN hunting down bodybuilders to get their opinions when they know what they're trying to bait them on, and trying to make just step on the sport of bodybuilding, where they wouldn't even go 10 feet within somebody who's 70 years old who looks like a bodybuilder in a bathing suit that weighs 3 ounces. So those people who might win those shows might have something relevant and important to say that lifts up bodybuilding rather than stomps on it.
Yeah, and if you want some even stronger opinions, later this week we will have the Iron Rage episode with John Romano and Lee Priest, who will give their very strong opinions on what went down this past week in bodybuilding, as well as Ronnie Coleman's TMZ Live interview, where he condemns what's going on in the industry as well. We'll have all the opinions on that. I want to just leave you once again with the quote of the week. Remember, a good plan violently executed now is better than a perfect plan executed next week. That's George Patton said that. Guys, don't wait till tomorrow. Do it today. I'm Dave Palumbo with Chris the Technician Aceto for another episode of Heavy Muscle Radio.